Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday. Took me a minute there. Welcome to another edition of Mamas in Miami, where together we're navigating parenthood with unwavering solidarity and fierce, fierce love. Today we're going to have Lindsey Brown on. She's the wife of Nina Moss, who we spoke to earlier in the week. She's got the most beautiful story I cannot wait to share with you all. I'm going to explain why I'm a few minutes late. I want to excuse myself with Lindsey as well. So let me sign her on, and then I will discuss why I am the reason we're starting a little late today. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I am mortified.
I
I am so embarrassed.
don't worry, don't worry. It's not a big deal at all. I honestly thought today was Wednesday when I got to the office, so it's all good.
Juneteenth threw me for a number, but let me explain to everybody, why I'm late joining this morning. So, as you all know, I had a 3-level spinal fusion 2 months ago, and as a result, I haven't been inside a supermarket in 6 months. I've been depending on Instacart. And needless to say, this was my first trip to Publix in 6 months, and it was like a whole new world to me. I lost track of time. But here's what I'm so excited about, you guys. I am at the Publix out in Palmetto Bay on 140 something in US 1, and they have come out with coconut milk, evaporated coconut milk, and evaporated sweetened condensed milk. And I
Wow.
am severely lactose intolerant and cannot remember the last time I had arroz con leche or flan. So I went nuts at Publix looking up every single non-dairy alternative to make all my Cuban desserts, and I am so excited, you guys.
That's amazing.
So I am mortified. I'm so embarrassed. I lost track of time over something so trivial, but this is a big deal to me because I can't remember the last time I had arroz con leche.
Listen, benefits of going to Publix over Instacart. I completely understand.
Yeah, you never would have found this on Instacart.
100%.
Anyway, hi, Lindsey. Welcome to Mamas and My on US 1 and 140 something because I only have a couple minutes between pick up and drop off. And I know you've got to pick up your son, Mateo. So let's
Yes.
just dive straight into this. I had no idea that you had adopted a child.
Yeah. So we're actually a family of 5. Pretty wild. 2 babies and a 23-year-old.
And how old are you?
I I just turned a couple days ago 41.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Okay, take us
Hmm.
back to the very beginning. I'm assuming that
Uh-huh.
you were a baby when you adopted your daughter.
Yeah, I was really young. So it's not a typical adoption story. It wasn't that I was looking to adopt a child or was trying to create a family at that time. I so Magali is from Ecuador, and I actually visited Ecuador with a group from my high school. It was when I was in college, but I was like 19 or 20, and I went down on this mission trip to a little pueblo right outside of Quito. It's called Mindo, where Magali lived and grew up until she was 14. So that's when I originally met her.
You met her at 14.
No, no, I met her. She was 2 years old.
Oh,
Um, and I can't remember if I was 19 or 20. Yeah, so she was just a baby and she was living in this school with her siblings in this little town. And I can give you the whole story. So I went down on this mission trip and I was kind of like, oh, I've never been to Ecuador. I'll check it out. This sounds like fun. And I fell in love with this little girl. She was 2 years old. She lived in this school. It was run by nuns. And Magali has another family. She actually has 3 older siblings who lived in the school with her. So I spent 2 weeks there with this group from Lourdes. And I got really attached to her. And I got really attached to her siblings as well. And leaving after those 2 weeks was really, really hard. I remember we got off the plane and my mom said, my sister was with me. She said, you got off the plane with these 15 other girls, and all the girls were like smiling and happy to see their parents, and you and your sister were just bawling, crying, saying, we left this kid, and it was terrible. So I ended up getting really involved in the Mindo mission. And with Magali, I would call the school once a week to talk to her and her siblings, and I would try to go down annually to visit them. And I kind of just became like a godmother. I would help them from afar, just make sure their needs were taken care of. And when Magaly was 11, I was 27, and I finally kind of had my life in order. And I said, you know what? There were some struggles going on down there, and I wanted to give her an opportunity. I wanted to bring her over. So I said, I'm going to file for adoption. So after, I guess, like 10 years of going back and forth down there, I finally pulled the trigger, and I filed for adoption. It was a really, really hard process. It took like 3 years, and it all kind of worked out. And she ended up moving to Miami and living with me.
Okay. I have so many questions.
Go ahead,
Okay.
sure.
You go with your high school, Lourdes Academy, or
Uh-huh.
Our Lady of
Our
Lourdes,
Lady of Lords, yeah.
on a mission trip with the
Yeah,
school.
yeah.
You meet a 2-year-old little girl who you fall in love with and,
Yes.
and connect with.
100%. Yep.
You get off that airplane, and all you can think of is this little girl.
No, no, yeah. It was so hard leaving. I'll never forget it. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
And you're a baby yourself.
Yeah, that's true. I was in college. Yep.
So you find all the information and you start communicate. Does she speak English at this point when she's two
No,
years
no,
old?
she didn't speak a word of English when she moved here. The girl is amazing. She went to high school, she went to LaSalle, learned English, like made a bunch of like she just graduated from FIU with a degree in engineering a couple weeks ago. Like she is the bomb. She's done so well. But no, she doesn't speak any English.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does she? Okay. Wow. Wow. So you decide 7 years later, you're 27 years old, you're out of college, single gal, not married. You decide, I want to adopt a child. It, how do you even process, go about that? I mean, do they just allow for this to happen? Did you ask Magaly over the phone? Did you talk to her parent? How did that even come
It
to be?
was it was hard. I always knew that I wanted to bring her here. Like that was never a question. I was just a
Okay.
baby. Like I didn't have the means to do it. Um, so once I finally had a job and a house and kind of had my life together, I was like, you know what, I think I can do this. So again, I had been really involved in this mission group who still does a ton of missions down to Minto these days. And there was an attorney who I had gone on a few missions with, and he was an attorney in Ecuador and in Miami. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, Marcel, this is what's going on. He knew about my relationship with Magaly. Do you have any suggestions? Like, how would I even look into this? And it all, even though it was really difficult, kind of lined up. He was like, you know what, let me look into this for you. He had a childhood friend who owned an adoption agency in Ecuador, who ended up being an agency that I worked with and helped us out. And it was difficult because, again, Magali does have two families. She's actually in Ecuador right now with a mission trip um, group doing some work. But so her parents were involved, and we had to have them, sign certain paperwork. And that took probably a year going through the courts. And then I had to do, the home visits and the psychological assessments and the studies and the paperwork. And it took like 2 years. And they told me, once it's time, you're going to have to move down there for a few months because there's this rule in Ecuador where you have to kind of like get to know the kid and get adjusted, which obviously I already knew her, but it was a little bit, they weren't used to the situation. So I literally got a phone call one day and they were like, you need to move to Ecuador next week for like 3 months. And I was like, okay, okay. And I did it. And we went and we stayed in Quito for 3 months while we finished all the paperwork and it went in front of a judge and they like declared her Magaly Brown. Um, and then she flew back with me and it was amazing. It's really, really crazy. And we still go back to Ecuador every year and visit her siblings and make sure that she knows, where she came from, which obviously she's still really close with them. She was old enough to understand, so it worked out. But to answer your other question, yes, when I decided I wanted to adopt her, I actually was like, you know what, I'm going to fly to Ecuador and make a trip out of it and talk to Magali about what she thinks and to her older siblings. I didn't want them to feel like I was
Sure.
taking Magali and not them. And we cried and she was super excited and they were super excited and everybody was on board and that's what happened.
I cannot imagine Magali's biological mother giving you her greatest, and I get emotional because I think about it myself. Like if I was in those shoes, it's the biggest gift you can give another person is your child
Yeah.
for
No,
the
I mean, it's,
better, for the, and how selfless she is to have put her daughter
yeah, it's,
first.
right. I mean, it's really, really complicated. So Magali, yeah, she still has relationships with them, and she wasn't living with them at the time. She was living in this school where she lived from age 2 to, until the age that that she moved in with me at 14. So she was uh had her family and all that stuff there, but the nuns in the school were doing raising her a lot as well too.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. And that initial conversation that you had with her, that you said, let's make this official, let me adopt you and bring you to the United States.
Mhm.
What was her
She
I,
just cried. She just cried and cried. It was very, very sweet. And it was hard because I also didn't want to make any false promises because I knew how difficult this process was going to be. So I was very upfront at the beginning saying like, hey, I'm going to try with everything I have to do this. I don't know if it's going to work, but I just want to make sure that, we're all on board and we all want the same things.
how did your family react? You're a single woman out of college,
Yeah,
just starting your
it
life.
was it was hard. My mom was very, very understanding because she had, after that first trip, we brought her to Mindo and showed her and introduced her to Magaly. So my mom had been on several trips and knew the kids really well. So she was really supportive just because she understood our relationship. A lot of my family was like, Lindsay, like you're 27, you're starting your life. What are you doing adopting a teenager? Like you're crazy. But it's funny now because Magali is such a vital part of our family. They're like, wow, like how did you know this? Like we just didn't know that we needed her. Um, so I definitely got a little bit of pushback, but in the end, they were very supportive. I'm really, really lucky to have such an amazing family.
And how did you navigate those first couple years with a teen? I mean,
Yeah.
you give birth practically to a 14-year-old teenager with hormones and not speaking the language and not knowing the country and the
Yeah.
culture. How was that?
It was hard. I'm not gonna lie. It was harder than I ever could have imagined. So Magali was born in July, so she's the youngest in her class. So when she came, I decided to hold her back for a year so she would have a year to learn English and she would just be the oldest in her class. So she ended up going into eighth grade for a year. And eighth grade is really hard. Kids have their cliques, like you already have your groups. So I put her at this, it was actually a little Catholic school, St. Michael. And the reason we put her there was because I was friends with the teacher, and the teacher knew her from Mindo. She's a part of the family that's really, really involved in Mindo. So that was really helpful. But it was hard. There were a lot of tears. She had a hard time making friends the first year. But at the same time, the girl was such a hard worker from day one. I remember her teachers used to use her as an example and be like, if this child who doesn't speak English can get A's in my class, how are the rest of you kids not able to pass my class or get A's? Like, she busted her butt from day one. And then once she went into LaSalle, which we were able to get her into LaSalle because they were also a part of the Mindo mission. So they kind of understood and they were like, obviously she's not going to pass an entrance exam without speaking English, but they knew she was a smart kid. They kind of made an exception. But ever since she entered LaSalle, like at that point, her English was a little bit better. Everybody was starting fresh. She made a bunch of friends and it was like a refresh. So I would say that first year, there was a lot of a lot of transitioning and of course, through those teenage years, but she made a great group of friends. She played sports. She worked super hard. I mean, she got into FIU. She busted her butt. So it went really, really well as could be expected.
And go ahead and share with everybody her degree. She graduated
Yeah,
from FIU now.
she graduated cum laude with a degree in mechanical engineering. So she's
Amazing.
on the job hunt now. Pretty amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
When you brought her home from Ecuador, and excuse my ignorance, maybe I'm not aware, but at the orphanage where she was at, or the children's home where she was at,
Uh-huh.
was she getting an education that was equivalent to eighth grade here in the United
You
States, or did
know,
she have a setback?
so it's really hard to understand because it's a very small rural town in Ecuador. So of course I don't think their education standards are quite the same. However, they're very, very strict. And it turns out holding her back, I'm sure also helped. but I think their education standards are better than I expected because she wasn't behind like I thought she would be. And they teach them just to be such hard workers. I mean, you do your chores, you make your bed, you sweep the floors, you do everything, you do your own laundry. Like kids are adults at a much younger age over there, which was also part of like the life-changing experience when I went. Like, oh my God, I'm used to being a spoiled brat in Miami, and look at these kids, like they're 8 and they do everything. Um, so she just grew up very, very differently. So she learned very quickly. And I remember her coming over here. I actually read a paper that she wrote when she was in like 8th grade recently in English. It was like her broken English. And it was like the kids here are all babies. But it's
Yeah,
true. They were just all, in their own little bubbles. Hmm.
that's amazing. Your your testimony is so
Oh,
beautiful. There's
thanks.
so many people I think out there that, I mean, first of all, I think adoption is a vocation.
Yeah,
And I
100%.
think so many people think of it as a gorgeous, beautiful thing, something that they would love to do, but at the end of the day, once they're kind of at the altar, they back out
Right.
for fear of the unknown.
Right.
So the fact that you followed through all the way, I find just
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
courageous
You know,
because you
I,
don't know which way it's going to
yeah,
go.
it's hard. Maybe I was young and naive. Who knows? But it's it's hard. I'm not gonna lie. Like those first couple years were really, really difficult. But they were so worth it. Like this is like an amazing kid, and she deserved an opportunity. And I'm so lucky to have her. My family's so lucky to have her. So yes, it's difficult. Just like raising kids is difficult. But if you can get past all that, I mean, you're gonna. Magaly's my kid. She's been my kid since before she came to Ecuador. I love her no differently than my other children. So I can't imagine my life without her. Yeah, I don't
Has
know. Like, mhm.
Magaly's biological family ever come to the US to spend time with you guys?
It's hard to get them visas and stuff over there. We were able to get her older sister. Her older sister was a lot like her mom when she was a kid. Her name's Enid, and she's awesome. We're also very close. And when I originally went to Ecuador, Enid was 11 or 12. And I mean, it was part of my experience being like, wow, Anit like takes care of her. She does her laundry. She pees the bed and needs one that changes it. She was like her mom. I was like, oh my God, this kid's 11. So she was a huge influence in her life. And yeah, we were actually able to get her a visa to come a couple years ago, and she just came for Magaly's graduation, which was awesome.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, so I would love to get her other siblings visas. So far, we haven't had a lot of luck, but we'll see in the future.
That's a beautiful thing that she was able to come and witness her little sister
Yeah, yeah,
receive
yeah.
a
It
degree.
was great. Yeah, no, it was awesome. It really was. It was really nice having her, and she's also a really good kid. And she actually um, Magaly was the first in her family to graduate college here, and we were able to get her sisters in school over there. So her sister was able to graduate a couple of months ago also, which was really nice.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it
Was
all worked out.
how did it work to be a single mom essentially? So young.
I mean, it was really complicated. So I was a single mom, but I had a lot of support from my parents and my family, which was really, really nice. Magaly did not know that I was gay when she came. So that was a tough transition, and it was something I struggled with during the adoption process because I was like, oh my God, like what if she comes and she finds out? And she was raised very, very Catholic, like by nuns, more Catholic than we can ever imagine. So it was something I struggled with, and I wanted to tell her before the adoption process started, but I couldn't because legally I can't adopt as a gay person in Ecuador. So I was like, and I was single at the time. I was in my 20s. I was probably still a little bit confused about myself as it was. Um, so when she came, she didn't know. And I spoke with my aunt, who was a child psychologist, who's amazing. And I was like, Anna, what do I do? I don't know how this is going to go. And she was like, look, just do your best not to lie to her. Just you don't need to say anything. You're not saying that you're dating anybody, or it's going to be kind of like Santa Claus. When she asks, tell her and don't lie about it. So I kind of had to wait for that to happen when she got over here. And it actually went better than I ever could have expected. It turned out great. And now she's best friends with Nina, and we're a big family, and it works out really well. But it was interesting.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how did you go about the adoption process since you were technically not allowed to adopt in Ecuador? Did you kind of like just
Well,
avoid
you know,
saying?
I just didn't. They didn't ask. It was like a don't ask, don't
Right,
tell kind of thing.
right.
Yeah, it wasn't like I lied on the application. It just never came up, and so I wasn't going to mention it.
Was there ever any thought in your mind that said, should I tell her parents?
No,
No. Okay.
no. Yeah, that I wasn't too concerned about that. I was more concerned about telling her,
Her.
really. Yeah.
And so when you and your by the time you met your wife, she was already cool
Uh,
and this is
yeah, yeah. She's like my biggest advocate. She's like, why is
that's
this something
amazing.
you would ever even second guess? Like, who cares?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
When you met Nina and you're like, by the way, I have a daughter.
Yeah. That went really well.
Um, did it
Nina was
even
great about it.
was she?
Yeah, no, it worked out. I'm sure that like her family initially had some reservations. I was a little bit older. I had a teenage daughter. Like
Right.
it's realistic. I would have had reservations as well, but once they met us, like they were amazing. And Nina's parents are like Magaly's other grandparents. They love her, and it's great. It all, little by little, all worked out.
Can you talk to me more about the adoption process and what that would look like today? Have things kind of opened up more for a a gay person to adopt in another country or even here in the
Yeah.
United States? Is it still considered taboo?
I don't think in the United States there are restrictions. I honestly haven't looked at this in a long time, so I don't know. It changes with every country. So a lot of Latin America doesn't allow it. I really can't speak for most countries. I don't know. I just know that process, and I know because I was looking up the regulations. Like I wasn't about to mention it to the adoption agency,
Sure.
um, and it was just not allowed at the time. I don't think that's changed, but it's different for every country. I wish I knew exactly what it was today.
Okay. And so if somebody was considering adopting internationally,
Mhm.
what would be your advice to them today?
Just be prepared for a long ride. It's 100% worth it. Just, I've been through IVF and I've been through the adoption process, and they were both really, really hard. The adoption process took 3 years, and part of that was a little complicated because Magali did have another family. Realistically, I think it really should take like a year and a half. But IVF also took us a year and was a very emotional process. Um, but just keep at it. Like if you're trying to adopt, you're going to go through an agency. They're going to introduce you to children, and you are going to have to do a psychological assessment. You're going to have to do, basically like an FBI background check. They come to your house, they check out your family, and it can feel a little bit intrusive sometimes. But at the end of the day, one of their goals is also to make sure that these kids are going to nice families, that are going to take care of them, and they're trying to avoid human traffic and those kinds of things. So it's also important for us to appreciate that there is a process, and that these kids are ending up in loving homes. So take it day by day, and in the end, it's 100% worthwhile. I mean, Magali's been with me now since she was 14, so almost 10 years, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Of course, she's a part of you at this point.
Right.
Um,
Hmm.
so my other question was, is there a way to get involved in Mundo today, or is that no longer working?
Yeah. Yeah. So I am not as involved in the Mindo organization just because my time and efforts have been more focused directly towards Magali's family in today's day and age and over the past couple
Sure.
years. But there's a family who's awesome who kind of oversees the Mindo charity and organization, and they do medical missions and they do youth missions, and they take groups down to this school in Mindo where they really help this town, um, and help the school, and it's grown a lot. There are a ton of people that are involved in it. I mean, hundreds of people. So they had a medical mission a few weeks ago, and they go down and treat tons of patients, and they've even brought people over here that need major surgeries before and have sponsored them. So they make a huge difference.
Is
Um,
Magali involved with them today?
yeah, she actually went down this week. She's recently gotten more involved with them again. But she is there this week building a 3D printing lab for some of the kids. So she went down with a group from Lourdes and LaSalle, actually, and one of her old teachers. And they're building a lab. My brother's an engineer, and he actually went with her this week, so that the
So
kids over
cool.
there that are doing like mechanics can start learning about 3D printing. It's pretty cool.
This is absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
What a gorgeous, beautiful story.
thank
Did
you.
you have a support group or a community that you leaned on during the process of other adoptees?
Not really, just because my story was so different from most. Like most of those groups, I think the agency did send me a couple resources that I didn't really follow too closely because I already knew Magali. She was already like my kid. It wasn't like I was getting to know a new child like a lot of these families were. So it was really my family that I leaned on for the most part, and my friends, and really the Mindo group because they all knew Magali.
Right, right.
Mhm.
I know you have to pick up Mateo in 15 minutes
No
because
problem.
I could keep asking you questions all
Don't
day.
worry.
I'm sure that once we post this IG Live to our profile grid, people are going to be asking questions. Would you be open to answering them if that
Yeah,
is the case?
100%. I'm happy to share our experience, and if anybody ever has questions about adoption, I'm happy to talk to them. It's really is a gift not only for the child but for a family.
Where do you see Magali in 10 years?
It's a really good question. Magali is going to be some badass biomedical engineer who is killing it because the girl is so smart and such a hard worker, and she's really cute because she always says like, Lynn's like, do you think I'm going to be as successful as you? Like, do you think I'm going to do as well as you guys? I'm like, Magali, you are already way more successful than us.
Oh,
Like, there is zero question about your success because you are killing it. Hmm.
Magali, somebody just put Magali for president in 10 years.
Nice. That's
Oh, one
100% true.
actually, that prompts me a question. Is she a US citizen today?
Yeah, yeah. During the adoption process, she was able to get citizenship. It's a part of the process.
So she's a dual citizen of Ecuador and US?
Correct. Yeah, it's
That's
very cool.
crazy.
Hmm.
Very cool. Well, Lindsay,
Yes.
I want to thank you and your family for opening up to us. This week has been, I can't tell you how many people have sent, not called us, sent us IG messages and direct messages saying, thank you so much. You guys are an inspiration. The
Oh, that's awesome.
specifically the conversation about baptizing kids, I
I
think really struck
yes.
a chord with everybody.
It
Um,
really did. It really did. A couple people reached out to Nina too. I'm glad we were able to share that experience a little bit
so
or our thoughts,
So,
right?
that's why we're doing this. And we're so
100%.
grateful that you guys came on board. And I had already told Nina, I hope I can hang out with you guys outside of this setting in the future. You guys are awesome.
Oh, 100%. We would love that. Thank you so much for
Sounds
having
great.
us.
Thank you guys. Have a great weekend, everyone. Keep that coffee strong and your sanity intact. We are extinguishing our little virtual campfire here with this tribal meeting, and we're adjourning. And everybody have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye.